village in southern China to call him a running dog of the white devils, came under attack by a mob that stoned him to death in the street. His mother fled with her 4 children to Hong Kong, and at the age of 16, Lee enrolled in the Canton Medical School, a school of Western medicine founded by an American doctor from Ohio. There he met his future wife, Dr. Kong Tai-hyung, who in time would be at his side to witness death on a scale neither could have imagined. Short where he was tall, reserved where he was loud, Dr. Kong was the physical opposite of her husband, yet she was widely seen as his intellectual superior. Left in a basket on the steps of a Lutheran mission in Hong Kong as an infant with nothing more than a pin bearing her name, she had grown up helping German nuns care for other children in her orphanage. They, in turn, helped her apply to the Canton Medical School. There she was known as the most brilliant student in her class, and, with Lee, spent her off hours tending to victims of the epidemic ravaging Hong Kong that left hospitals reporting a 95% death rate. The pair graduated from medical school one June morning and were married in a Lutheran chapel that same afternoon. The following day they boarded a steamship headed to Hawaii, drawn by its promise of paradise after the hell they had seen. They entered Honolulu weeks later to the sound of cannon blasts, each one marking the island's celebration of the American Independence Day. There was no doubt in Lee's mind that the disease that he had prayed would never follow him had now come ashore. Since arriving in Honolulu, he had built up his practice ministering to poor Chinese immigrants who were suspicious of the small but powerful group of white merchants and missionaries who, 2 years earlier, had overthrown Hawaii's monarchy in hopes of American annexation. Any cooperation with the new government would be seen as a betrayal and put him at risk of meeting the same fate as his father. Despite that danger and the late hour, Dr. Lee summoned Dr. George Herbert, an English physician who worked for the Board of Health. By the time he arrived, Yuk Hoi was dead. Dr. Herbert called in 2 other colleagues and, with Dr. Lee, prepared the examining table to conduct an autopsy in the small hours of the night. By the flickering light of kerosene lanterns, the team of white doctors stood shoulder to shoulder and watched as Dr. Lee opened the body and peeled back its skin to reveal signs of extensive internal hemorrhaging. Dr. Lee pointed to the black marks on the arms, the dried blood in the mouth, and the swollen lymph nodes in the armpits, neck, and groin. The procedure finished, Dr. Lee told the men in front of him in his halting English that the man's symptoms perfectly matched those he had seen among the dead of Hong Kong. His voice echoed in the silent room. Dr. Walter Hoffman, a young German doctor just 4 months into his job as Honolulu's first bacteriologist, stepped forward to take a sample of tissue from the glands of the dead man. His laboratory across town was the only place on the island that could confirm what every doctor assembled that night now believed. For the first time in history, bubonic plague had reached Hawaii, bringing with it the capacity to kill everyone they loved in a matter of days. On the eve of the modern era, one of the most feared diseases in human history returned without warning and unleashed death on a scale not seen in centuries. Bubonic plague appeared in the rural province of Yunnan in south-central China in the late 1870s, where it festered for nearly 2 decades before making its way across the globe. By 1893, it had reached the city of Canton, where, in the words of one observer, it killed thousands of people like plum blossoms in a late frost. From there, the disease traveled along the Pearl River to Hong Kong, and then on board steamships to the wider world. In China, some 10 million people died within a span of 5 years. By the end of 1910, another 5 million would perish as plague emerged in India, Australia, Scotland, and North Africa, sparking fears that the Black Death, a 14th-century worldwide outbreak of plague that in some areas killed 60% of the population, had returned. The disease seemed to arrive with no cause and overwhelm the body with no cure. In 1894, a tiny rod-shaped bacterium known as Yersinia pestis was identified as the source of plague, but beyond that, little else. How the disease spread, who was most likely to contract it, or whether any medicines could dent its progress, was known. Doctors engulfed in the first clash between the ancient disease and modern medicine were left to experiment for themselves, knowing all the while that millions of lives hung in the balance. Coming at a time when public health officials were widely distrusted, during the smallpox epidemic of 1894-95.